Folks, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. I'll explain. Number one, it's absolutely free, means you don't pay a dime out of pocket. Number two, you can use creation tools to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, like I'm doing with my phone. Number three, if you want to hear it on multiple platforms, Anchor can do that for you. So you can hear it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, among others. And the thing is, you can make money without anybody listening, as little as that. And everything you need to do is to make a podcast is all here. To get started, please download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. You'll be glad you did. My guest this week is the sports director at WDBJ in Roanoke, Virginia, and has been since July of 2008. He started as the weekend sports anchor back in 2002, and he was named the Sportscaster of the Year in Virginia back in 2015 and a member of the National Sports Media Association. I'm pleased to be joined by Travis Wells. Travis, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Danny. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. One thing I know, a good connection about Virginia Tech. My niece went to Virginia Tech. She taught up there. I think she still does. I'm not sure now.
It's a great place. If you like kind of the slow, easy way of life in Southwest Virginia, it's a great place. A lot of mountains around, and it's beautiful this time of year with the fall foliage.
Yes, I would love to do that once. You know, I've heard so much stuff about being in Lane Stadium, hearing Enter Sandman, though I heard that in New York for many years when Mariano Rivera pitched for the Yankees.
That's right. Yeah, it's until you've experienced it and been there, it's one of the great traditions in all of college football. Obviously, it's a little better when your team is winning as opposed to losing, but it's still pretty cool.
Yeah. Speaking of which, a crazy week for both schools. You know, Fuente gone earlier in the week, and Miami fires its athletic director late Monday afternoon. With J.D. Price on an interim basis there. What is the status of the coaching search at Virginia Tech as of this morning?
Well, obviously there's some names out there that have been out there. Whit Babcock, the athletic director, usually likes to play things pretty close to the vest. He's done that in all of his coaching searches. I go back to his basketball coaching search a few years ago when he hired Buzz Williams, obviously before Mike Young, and he had let James Johnson go. And there were all kinds of names out there, and he kind of pulled Buzz out of left field. And so he sort of did the same thing too with Mike Young, the basketball coach. He was kind of an under the radar candidate. And so Whit is not a committee of one. It's probably, maybe it's not going to be a whole lot of guys and gals sitting around a table, a committee like that. It'll be Whit and a couple of close advisors, maybe two people at most that are going to make this decision. I've heard all the names that most people have, Dave Clawson at Wake Forest, his name has come up, Billy Napier at Louisiana. They play Hugh Freeze and Liberty this weekend. Hugh Freeze's name has come up when talking about a lot of these jobs, and then Jamie Chadwell down at Coastal Carolina as well.
Yeah, the thing I've read about Babcock is he wants to do things the right way. Basically he wants to do it right. He wants head coaching experience, like you said. The names in other sports have come up. What is I heard a timeline regarding an AD a coach would have to be probably after the Virginia game. Is that what you're hearing as well?
You would almost have to do it then, simply because of the recruiting dates and the early signing period coming up that second week of December. You want to try to keep the guys that have committed to you. Obviously, I know the interim coach, J.C. Price, had a Zoom call with Whit Babcock and all the recruits earlier this week, and tried to reassure them, if you're an 18-year-old kid that's committed to a school and your coach gets let go, obviously there's a lot of uncertainty there. So I think that sort of has to be the timeline just for recruiting purposes.
Yeah, no question about that. I've looking at a couple of names before we came on here. You mentioned Freeze. I don't think Freeze becomes a real candidate, only because Babcock wants to do it the right way. Background checks, he wants to look at that and look at Freeze's past. I just don't think he gets that job. But for me, the name I would look at, really found intriguing, was Joe Moorhead, the current offensive coordinator at Oregon, who's very familiar with the area, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely. He's recruited the area, obviously spent time at Penn State, has a ton of experience at the Power 5 level. I think he's certainly a viable candidate.
Oh yeah, no question. Especially if Mario Cristobal somehow leaves Oregon for the University of Miami, which has been a big topic of conversation down here the last week with the firing of our athletics director Blake James, and we're looking for a new athletics director ourselves. So it's been a very crazy week to say the least for both schools. Oh, and by the way, lost in all this, we have a football game tomorrow night.
Yeah, and who knows what to expect. I know Miami has been up and down. They've looked really good at times and not so good at other times. They've had some instability, but I think they've settled now on a quarterback. So that certainly helps. And if you're Virginia Tech, it's been sort of the same story. They lost a lot of close games, and now they've had some injuries, but there's been inconsistency with quarterback play and so forth. So the two teams are similar in that way, I think.
Yeah, I looked at last week. They beat Duke last week in the home finale, and that's the same Duke team that was Westman West. Now 1-16 after getting blasted by Louisville last night. And the thing I really look at is their best pass rusher is a guy named Amari Barno, if I'm not mistaken.
It is. And Barno, he had a lot of accolades coming into the season, kind of burst onto the scene last year and played really well in his first year, getting significant time. And he's been a little bit inconsistent this year, I think. He played really well out of the gates against North Carolina, had a couple really big plays in that game, but he's just been really up and down throughout the year. And they need him to be productive for them to be successful defensively.
Yeah, no question. And I've looked at your defense. The thing that really impressed me was the third down defense. In fact, it's 16th in the country in that department, giving up only 373 yards a game overall.
That's where they've really excelled, is getting off the field. And I think if you go back to some of their losses in the last year or two, that's where they really kind of struggled, was getting off the field on third down. And so I think they've been much better at that, no doubt.
Oh, no question about that. I look at a couple things. I think when you talk about us down here, I mean, we had the tough loss to Florida State last week. And that leads me to keys to the game. For Miami to win this game, it's got to get the chain out twice. Miami cannot commit dumb drive killing penalties. We got to get the O going much faster after last week against FSU and get past the hurdle of going into a free fall after the FSU game, because that's been a big problem around here for quite a while.
Yeah, and I think if you're Virginia Tech, you got to be able to run the ball. Miami's secondary is really good. Virginia Tech hasn't been good in the passing game, at least not consistently. They only really rely on 2, maybe 3 receivers in the throw game. And so I think you got to really run the ball with a guy like Malachi Thomas and a couple other kids. And so I think that'll be the key for them, sustaining some drives and eating some time off the clock.
Yeah, that was an issue last week. FSU did that pretty well. They took a lot of clock last week. And I think that's going to be the key to this ball game too. Is Miami cannot turn the ball over, and basically you can't make mistakes. Now I've noticed, like you said, an issue for us down here has been tackling, and that's where I think you said running the ball is going to be key. You had 297 yards last week, including 117 from Blackshear. King had another 90 in the TD. Do you expect that kind of performance again in this game?
I do. I think Blackshear's kind of figured it out. It was interesting. Last week when we talked with Fuente after that game, and he was talking about Blackshear and how he's learned to kind of be patient and take a 3-4 yard gain instead of trying to hit the home run every time. And I think it definitely helped him last week. Obviously, he was the ACC running back of the week for that performance over Duke. Had a rushing touchdown, a receiving touchdown, and I think close to 150 all-purpose yards. So I think he's started to figure it out just a little bit. And then they've gotten. You mentioned Keyshawn King. He'd been banged up a little bit with an ankle, and he had kind of a coming out party against Duke as well. And then I mentioned the freshman Malachi Thomas, who kind of had a breakout game against Syracuse and has been really steady and consistent over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, the thing about Virginia Tech, and I've always seen them through the years, the 3 things I've noticed during the Frank Beamer era was defense, special teams, and a physical running game. Do you think you're going to start to see that more going forward?
I think so. I think they're getting back to that a little bit. I think they had kind of gotten away from that and become, for whatever reason, a little bit more of a finesse team. And that really wasn't serving them too well. So I think they do have to get back to sort of that blue collar physical brand of football. And I think if nothing else, J.C. Price, the interim head coach, kind of personifies that. He was an old school player, played defensive end was one of the heroes of the 1995 Hokies team. The program had never beaten Miami before until 1995, and Virginia Tech actually started that year 0-2, losing to BC and Cincinnati. And here come the big bad Canes rolling in with Ray Lewis and a ton of other talented players. And somehow the Hokies pulled that one off 13-7. And J.C. Price had a sack on Miami's last drive that day. And from then on, they go on to win 10 straight and beat Texas in the Sugar Bowl back when Texas was really Texas, and really sort of catapulted Tech football into the limelight, so to speak. So I think if anybody personifies that lunch pail blue collar attitude, it's J.C. Price.
Oh, that's no question about it. I think will J.C. Price get a look to be the permanent head coach there?
I don't think so. He doesn't have enough experience yet, I don't think. Certainly at this level, he's coached at the likes of James Madison and Marshall. Longevity has sort of been a thing for his. I think he's 16 years at those two schools. And so I do think while he doesn't have a chance to be the head coach, I do think whoever gets the job would be hard pressed to kind of take a look at him, because he bleeds maroon and orange. He's a Hokie through and through. And I think he would bring some good things to a new staff. So I think he does have an opportunity to stay, just maybe not as a head coach.
Yeah, I understand. That's very understandable. I think given what you mentioned regarding Babcock earlier, wanting an experienced coach, is it going to be somewhere like a splash hire, like we're trying to get down here in Miami? Or is it going to be something more blue collar?
I'm not sure Whit Babcock really cares about that. He made some comment in the press conference the other day about whether it is a big name that people are on board with or it's not. That's not really going to be a factor in my decision. So I don't think he's necessarily looking at a big name, and I'm not sure really what kind of a splash you could get at a program like Tech.
Now, I think here in Miami, I mean, all the talk here has been getting an athletics director first and then hiring a head coach. We had a roundtable with former Hurricanes last night. That video will be out, I suspect, early next week. And the talk there is, hey, we have to get back to Miami football, which you know, the glory years, etc. To me, I think here we have to go after we're going after a big name coach now, because the money is now there to get a big name coach. But we have to get an athletics director first. The names that keep coming up is Tom Jurich, former Louisville AD, Dan Radkatovich, current AD at Clemson, who's an alumnus of the University of Miami. And those are the two big names that really come up in my opinion. Also Brian White at Florida Atlantic. But then, of course, you've heard the speculation on who the next head coach here would be. The number one name is Mario Cristobal, current head coach at Oregon.
And yeah, I think he would be a great fit there. Obviously, you mentioned a couple ADs with ties to the ACC. They kind of know the history of Miami in the league and what it takes to win there. So I think either one of those guys would be really good there.
Yeah, I think so too. Jace, Travis, before I let you go, prediction for tomorrow night's game.
Oh, wow. I'm not really good. I'm not real good at predictions.
Okay.
The turnover, you mentioned the turnovers. I think obviously whichever team is able to limit turnovers and win this thing, I think they win the game. I think it's a close fourth quarter game. Obviously Miami has played their share of close games this year. The Hokies have as well. I'll take Miami. I'll say 20-17 in a tight one.
Yeah, that's what Virginia Tech wants to do in this game. That's one of my keys here for Virginia Tech. Keep the game in the 20s. Miami wants to get it in the 30s. And they got to win the turnover battle, in my opinion, as well. And limit the penalties, too. But also, my prediction, I say, for Miami to win, the chains got to come out twice. Like I said, don't commit dumb drive killing penalties, because you know that's been killing us this year. Get the offense going again after the loss against FSU, and get past that hurdle where FSU has been a big problem around here. After losing FSU, Miami's free fall in recent years. But I'm going to say, listen, they're playing for Manny Diaz. It's the last home game. Manny Diaz is likely on the way out as head coach. They think they want to play that. They want to win for Manny. I think in the end it'll be Canes 35, Virginia Tech 27.
Hey, I'm curious, Danny. What do you think about the crowd this weekend? What kind of crowd do you anticipate?
Crowd they're talking here. It's about, I would say, I don't know, to be very honest. It's senior night. I'm going to say close to about 25, 30,000, maybe 30K at Hard Rock tomorrow night. That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking. I could be wrong on that, but that's what I'm thinking right now.
Good deal. Should be a good one. Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, Travis, listen, I hope to get to your part of the country soon. I've heard much good things about it. And thank you so much for being on this morning with me. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family.
Hey, happy Thanksgiving. I hope you guys have a great day and a great weekend.
You too.